Welcome everyone to our Landing a Job or Internship in the COVID era event. Thank you all so much for coming. We've still got some students joining, so for new additions, please feel free, join us. We've got some great intros happening in the chat. For new students joining, please feel free to share. Introduce yourself, your name, your major, year in school, if you have any career interests. It's really helpful for us to see all this great information in the chat so that we know who we are talking to. So we're so excited to have you join us. We're thrilled to have some great panelists today to share their insight. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Michelle Ryan. I'm the Associate Director for Industry Relations and Experiential Learning at the UCLA Career Center. Today, we are discussing how our world is changing at a pace that is challenging to keep up with. And the same certainly goes for recruiting and for hiring. So we're going to hear some insider insights from our recruiters to help you as students navigate and prepare for fall recruiting season and certainly beyond. Topics for today will include virtual career fairs, which, as you know, are coming up really shortly in the next couple of weeks. We have fairs the week of October 4th and the week following, depending on the industry that you're interested in. So we're going to talk virtual fairs. We'll talk about virtual networking, virtual interviews. We're going to discuss the current hiring landscape for college students and recent grads, and hopefully more. So for our agenda today, we'll start with introductions from our panelists. I have some prepared panel questions to get us started, and then we're going to leave around 15 minutes at the end of the hour to take some audience questions. So really quick, a couple housekeeping items. As I'm sure you've noticed, this event is being recorded. So if our audience can please just keep your audio on mute throughout the event, that way we can keep our audio clear. It's completely up to you on whether you'd like to have your cameras on or not. Our panelists will have our cameras on though, so you can see who we are. Throughout the event, if you think of a question for our panel, please submit that to us via the chat. My colleague Stacy Ullery is here providing support. I want to stop and give a big thank you to Stacy for her helping coordinate the panel today. She will be helping moderate the chat and will answer any questions that we get at the end of the event in the order they are submitted. Also, at the end of this event, we have a couple optional networking rooms that you can join if you would like. Northwestern Mutual and Lockheed Martin are both hosting their own networking sessions that we would love for you to join after this. We'll be sharing those meeting links closer to the end of the hour. So if you're interested in speaking with Northwestern Mutual or Lockheed following today's event, just keep an eye out for those links to be shared in the chat as we get closer to 1 p.m. So without further ado, I would love for us to get started. If you have any general questions, please also put those in the chat as well. Stacy will help answer those as we go through. And yeah, so we're gonna kick this off. We're joined today by panelists from 4 of our employer partner organizations, and we're so lucky to have them here sharing their insight and helping us begin the fall recruiting season. We have Jen from First Republic Bank, Renee from LEK Consulting, Margaret from Lockheed Martin, and Zakia is joining us from Northwestern Mutual. I'd love for us to begin and just have you guys introduce yourselves, our panelists. If you can tell us a little bit about your role, your organization, and maybe how long you've been recruiting at UCLA. That would be great. So I'm going to go ahead and start with who's first on my screen, which is Jen. If you'd love to go first.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to meet you. I'm Jen. I'm the senior campus recruiter at First Republic Bank. My role pretty much, I am campus recruiting in a nutshell, 100%. I absolutely love doing this. It's definitely my bread and butter. I've been recruiting for, oh gosh, like 8 or 9 years now. So it always feels like a new season, new students, keeps it interesting in the mix. So I think truly that's why I just love doing it, because every year is a new year, a new pool of students. And I'm really excited to be sharing more about First Republic, or in general, the finance industry.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jen. All right, I'm going by who's next on my screen. Margaret, you're up.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to campus. I know for some of you it's probably your first time on campus due to the COVID pandemic, but welcome. My name is Margaret Paulin, and I'm the Campus Relations Manager for Lockheed Martin. I'm actually based here in Southern California. So what I do, similar to what Jen does, is my day is filled with connecting with students and with campuses. I have 5 campuses that I work with. And my part of my role is to certainly meet you, the students, but also to bring our resources from the business to assist with our recruiting efforts, at UCLA and the other campuses that I do work. And again, Lockheed Martin, as some of you may know, we're basically a global security, aerospace, and information technology company. I believe we are the #1 company in that realm, which is pretty exciting. And again, we're a company of about 114,000, but again, there's a number of entities across the country. And as Michelle had indicated, I'm going to be hosting an information session after this. Just again, wanted to let you know that I know most students think, oh gosh, she only hires engineers or computer scientists, but there's also needs for the finance and business operations side of the house too. Somebody's got to manage those engineers. So I keep them on budget and on schedule. So anyway, so if you would like to learn more, please come join me after this. So, okay.
Awesome, love it, thank you. And Zakia, you're next.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Can you hear me okay? I just want to double check the earpod sound. Okay, awesome. Well, lovely to meet all of you. My name is Zakia Whiteside, and I'm the Director of Campus Recruitment and a business coach at Northwestern Mutual in our West LA office. We're actually very fortunate to be so close to UCLA, about 3 miles or so. And like Margaret just mentioned, I also will be having an info session or a kind of a meet and greet after this. So if you'd like to learn more about who we are and what we do, or you have any questions, feel free to pop over when we finish today. But Northwestern Mutual is a financial services firm. And I think when some people automatically hear our name, you may think insurance, and you would not be wrong. We do specialize in life insurance, but that's not all we do. So we do a lot of what I like to call holistic financial planning, which has definitely a component of insurance, but also a lot of investments. We deal a lot with customers. So for some of our more sales students that are interested in that realm, or customer service, and just coming from a sense of investments and learning more about the market, you want to know how you can not only better your finances, but also help your clients. That's a lot of what we do. And so I'm fortunate, I guess is what I would say, to be able to talk to all of you students about something like this, but also too, when you're in our program, coach you and mentor you to continue to strive, not only professionally in this industry, if that's what you desire, but also personally, and just the other things that interest you and ways that you can kind of bridge the gap between all of your interests and professional endeavors. So glad to be here and happy to jump into this today.
Thank you so much, that was great. It looks like you're in a really lovely area wherever you are. It's like sunny and beautiful.
Yeah, I'm actually fortunate. We're having a leadership retreat. I'm at my boss's house. So in the internship, we also have summers here for a nice intern night that we do. So he has a lovely basketball court we like to play on. It's a good time. So I'm very fortunate to be at my boss's house right now.
Well, we're very lucky that your boss let you do this event in the middle of that. So thanks for joining us.
Totally.
Awesome. And then Renee, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Renee Go. I am a recruiting manager based in our San Francisco office of LEK Consulting. So we are a strategy consulting firm. We have offices in New York, SF, LA, Boston, Houston, and Chicago. I manage undergrad and MBA for our San Francisco and LA offices. So I will be a resource for any questions about recruiting, and I'm happy to connect you with staff to chat about what we do as well. So we will also have an info session next week on Friday. So hope to see some of you there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are really lucky to have such seasoned pros here. That is a wonderful value add to today. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to kick us off with some of our questions. And to our panelists, feel free to kind of just unmute yourself and shout out. We won't go in any order with the responses, and you can answer all of them or whichever you would like, but I'll get started. So my first question here, what do you think has been or would have been the biggest changes to recruiting in the past year and a half? Besides being hosted remotely, are you looking for different skill sets or engaging differently with your applicants that you're looking to recruit?
Yeah, I'll jump right in. I would say absolutely. The biggest thing that comes to mind is making sure to highlight culture, right, and community. I think a lot of students come in wanting to know, well, what's the culture like, right? That's like one of the top questions I get. And so to highlight that in the recruiting process, I think has changed a little bit, right? Because some of us are remote some of the time. It looks different, and it continues to change and evolve with COVID and depending on what industry you work in and what your office is doing. So I think that's a huge shift and change that's happened in the recruiting process. But I think it's a great shift and change that's happened because it's forced employers to really look at their culture and say, well, what's working well and what's not working and how can we make it better? But also too, to really get that feedback and talk to young individuals about what they're looking for, what type of culture they want to work in, and to see if it's a good fit. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for just the biggest shift that has happened that I've seen and how we recruit and what we talk about in that process.
And I'll jump right in. I can only echo what Zakia had mentioned too. And I think something that I've seen in a trend is how they addressed the pandemic with their existing colleagues. I think it's really important if you're looking at whether it's, First Republic or another institution, how did they value their current employees? Because that really says a lot at the end of the day. I think with the pandemic, we've been hit hard in all aspects of life. And something that brings security is finances, it's job security, it's many other variables. And so, you've heard it's the great resignation. It's the, a lot of people got COVID layoffs, right? And so definitely don't be shy to say so how has the last almost 2 years been for your company? And I also think, give yourself some time for introspection as well. What are your priorities? Because I could tell you working remotely, communication, how it's not just you should bring that as a skill set, but also it's how do you communicate with your colleagues? How does upper management communicate with everybody? And is there transparency? Because these are really things that maybe you might not think of right now, but are really huge factors later on in your life. So echoing everything what Zakia said and just adding 2 more things.
Also jump on there. Same culture has been and asking about it, proactively asking questions about culture. In the past, we'd host events and you can easily talk to people in a more informal environment. With us being virtual, it's seems a little bit more formal to be in a coffee chat and just presenting yourself. And when we were in person, visit offices during final round interviews and get a sense of the culture that way as well. So I think something that's different is it's harder to show and also to see that. So I think it's really up to both the interviewers and the staff that are attending recruiting events and also students asking about questions about culture and really just to really learn more if this is something, is this a firm that's something that I can resonate and see myself in. That's really you.
I agree with what everybody has said. The only, kind of piggybacking off of what Zakia had indicated, work-life balance. We get a lot of questions on work-life balance. What does that look like? Also professional development. What can they expect when they come in to an organization? And again, will I be able to work from home or do I have to physically come into a facility? As you know, about 2 years ago, we all had to pivot very quickly our intern programs. We, at least Lockheed Martin was able to still accommodate all of its interns that they had made offers to, even though probably still 30 to 40% of those interns still physically came into a facility, but the rest were allowed to work remotely. And I think that data has kind of shifted a little bit where our interns this summer 40% are working remotely, and 60% again are physically in the facility. So yeah, so we had to pivot. The other thing is I suppose students, just in terms of not knowing how to connect with employers, not sure on, with this remote business. I know everybody is suffering from Zoom fatigue, Zoom sickness, whatever label you want to put on there. It's been hard. And I know the students are yearning, just like we are, to get back on campus and, and stand in front of you and be able to, see you, in person and be able to, maybe shake your hand. I don't know whether or not we'll be restricted still from shaking hands or not, but anyway, and just traveling, because again, right now, some of us, at least for my company right now, I'm not allowed to travel until maybe the end of November or early December. We're still on travel restriction. Again, not only for the health and safety of the students, but also for, for our employee health and safety as well.
These are great. I think you guys are hitting all the major points too about some great questions our students should be asking for potential internship and jobs. So that's wonderful. This is a great segue, Margaret, that you just mentioned about preparation for this now. So, if for the foreseeable future, there's going to be some element of virtual or remote recruiting, what does preparation look like for students now? How do you think they should be preparing for virtual fairs, for these virtual info sessions, for these virtual networking events? How does it differ from how they might have been preparing previously for an in-person event? And that might have been like, hey, I got to get my blazer dry cleaned, and I've got to get copies of my resume ready, and I got to make sure, I've got a breath mint in case I go meet this person, right? So everything that used to be just kind of, hey, this is what prep work looks like for this. What does that look like now? What do you think students should be doing to prepare for these events? And, how is it just completely different from what you might have been asking them to do a couple of years ago?
So from my perspective, I still see some of the same things, still very similar, but we're in front of a camera screen instead of in person. Your elevator pitch is still critical, making sure that you've got that prepared. It needs to be customized in some cases, depending upon the employers that you're reaching out to, the types of jobs that you're seeking. Homework on the company. You really need to, this day and age, it's not that hard to find out about a company, right? You just, within a matter of seconds on your smartphone, your smart devices, you've got that information. Back in the day when I was a student, you had to go look in a book back in career services and thumb through these 3-ring binders. But now everything is at your fingertips. So taking advantage of finding out about the company to make sure it resonates with your values and what you're looking for. The last thing you want to do is come up and meet with an employer or and ask about, well, what does your company do? I'm not familiar with your company. That's a different conversation. We will still be very nice and we'll be very welcoming, but it's a different conversation that we have with you, as opposed to you telling me kind of, what you're looking for and how our company can help you in terms of the types of positions. So those are some immediate things that come to mind. So I still see it being very similar as opposed to being dissimilar at this point.
You took my whole list, Margaret. I was going to say exactly the same thing. But I also wanted to add is really emphasizing what Margaret said is the elevator pitch. I don't know if you guys have been in a few of the virtual fairs yet, but you get that 10 minutes if you're on Handshake, and most of the time your recruiter is going to say, what questions do you have? Because it's those 10 valuable minutes. So if you can state what you're interested in, take some time to research the company and the groups. We're not expecting exactly what you want and what role, but maybe mention, for example, if someone came to First Republic being I would love to learn more about private wealth. I'm interested in doing X, Y, and Z. What are your analyst roles looking like? What is the day-to-day? Prepare your questions as well so you can really maximize that limited time. And then lastly is ask about the interview process, because I think with the shift with virtual interviewing in person, we're navigating a lot of uncertainty still, even after post a year, and things changed constantly. I get asked if we're even doing a summer internship next year that's virtual. And I'm like, I don't know what next week looks like. So, ask those questions. But yeah, definitely emphasize the elevator pitch. And it also helps recruiters because we're listening to you. And we want to make sure that our messaging is targeted specifically to your needs.
And like when we were in person, like as they mentioned, like making sure your suit or like your clothes are like all well pressed. In this virtual environment, the recruiters earlier were talking about making sure you're still presenting professionally, whether that's using a background that's more professional, if you can't hide all the things happening. And we totally understand where everybody's in the house. A lot of us are working remotely, but making sure and ensuring that taking that just like few minutes right before your virtual fair. What do I have in my background that I probably need to like tidy up to be able to ensure that I'm presenting myself in the best possible light. So those are things that probably wouldn't initially think about, but people also take notice.
Yeah, and I'll jump in last but not least. I think everyone kind of touched a little bit on the interview process in some way, shape, or form. I would imagine that for everyone, it looks a lot different and it's probably a lot longer. So prepare for that, right? Because we still want to connect with you in the same way, but that may take an extra, 1 or 2 Zoom meetings, right? That may take an extra 30 or 15 minutes to connect with you and really get a chance to understand who you are and what you're looking for, because that's ideally, our goal. I would also encourage you to not be afraid to ask about the longevity, right? So if you are a senior, specifically, the job market right now is difficult. So if you're thinking about something as far as just an internship for a quarter or a semester, I guess that's great if that's what you're looking for, but there is so many opportunities as well to turn that into something long-term. So don't be afraid to ask that question too in this process.
Love all of these responses. I'm taking so many notes.
Yeah. Michelle, one more item. I was actually on a career fair at another campus yesterday, and I found it toward the end poor connection with with connectivity. So make sure that when you are attending an event or are interviewing, that you have you have great connectivity, because the last thing you want to do is have that call dropped. And again, make sure you notify the people around you that maybe you are interviewing. I mean, I've been on a number of interviews, a number of events, and I've seen unmade beds. I have seen dirty dishes. I have seen roommates coming out of the shower. So it's like, oh my God, I don't need to see these things. So I don't know whether or not they told the roommate, hey, I'm interviewing or I'm chatting with an employer. But anyway, it's like, so, just.
Yeah, and and if that's the case, right, let the interviewer know. Just let them know, hey, you know what? I do share a room with my roommate. They may be coming in at some point. I wanted to give you a heads up so that you're aware. And so now it's more comfortable. It's not awkward. It's like, oh, okay, no worries. I get it and I understand. We're all navigating this together. We're all humans.
Exactly.
So transparency, right? Just communicate that. I love that, Margaret. Yeah. Totally.
Adding 2 more things to add to that list, and they're very opposite. The first one is also geographic location. I know we're super comfortable with the remote location, but asking your, future employer, can I work remotely? Are you returning to the office? What locations do you have? Because I get asked all the time, and I'm like, everyone is going back to the office at some point. So you want to make sure that internship that you're interested in is in a place that you do want to live in and go commute to the office. The second thing, which I think I'm already spacing what that is already. Oh, it's Zoom etiquette is, you have to, like, if you like to live on the edge, we do this like kind of like on our team calls and everything, but there is I think it was Harvard Business Review that actually wrote something out about Zoom. You're more likely to listen and engage in a conversation if you keep your mute button unmuted the entire time. So if you do find a quiet space, I highly recommend it. I actually do it in all my meetings, and I actually am more absorbed. The Zoom fatigue is not actually as bad. And also carries more organic conversation because you can see more of a body language. You can do the, yes, like I totally understand, the laughing, and it brings more spirit into the conversation. So two different things to add to that list.
That is very brave, Jen. Have yourself unmuted. This is actually kind of a question that I had for later, but I want to see if there's any more that we would want to add to this, actually, because this is a great topic, is common mistakes now, or common missteps that people are kind of, that are occurring in the remote space, right? So, oh my gosh, Margaret has the great, having someone come out of the shower during an interview, I just can't think of a more difficult situation to manage. But we talked about a couple of things, right? Like your Zoom background, like what's behind you, having students just, check your camera ahead of time, check your connectivity. If you have an inappropriate thing on your wall, or, like you said, an unmade bed, it's all part of how you're presenting yourself to an employer. That's your new suit, I guess, right? Is, hey, this is how I'm presenting myself to you. But I'd love to see if there's any other of these sort of tips. And I know that we've all been on Zoom now for like 18 months, but certainly in the beginning, it was kind of a painful transition for us, as we all made those mistakes, right? We forgot to mute ourselves, forgot to turn our camera off. We forgot to tell people that we were in an interview and people are coming in. So I wanted to see, does anybody else have any more of those, hey, common little missteps that I'm seeing that, if I can give you guys a heads up to add this to your list of things to check before your interview, or even networking in general, it doesn't have to be an interview. I'd love to see if you guys have any more of those.
I'd say lighting is actually pretty important. Sometimes when you are against a light, you're like the, confidential informant. You like don't even see like their face. And I've had so many times where I'm like, is someone there? Like, hello. But also like being in the wild. I know, again, like the convenience of Zoom and being able to dial on your phone and everything, but you don't realize that most of the time I'm missing like what you're saying. The wind is like being picked up in the mic, and it's not, and it's like you have someone on the other end of the Zoom, you have to keep in mind, that took the time out to find a space to talk to you. It's the same thing if you were in the office and you like booked a conference room to talk to someone. So like having the same shared mutual respect of like I had a candidate, which I won't say like what school, where, but pretty much came to an office hours, had his phone, and he was in the middle of a line at an orientation week. And he's like talking to me as he's like talking to someone else for 20 minutes, trying to multitask, and, no apology, no like acknowledgement, just this is what it is. And so I know we're trying to, try to grab everything all at the same time, but just keep in mind, someone's really actually like setting aside time to get prepared to be presentable. So, in return, it would be nice to do the same.
And I would just say, make sure if you can keep your camera on, because that we love to see your face. Because it also gives us clues, what do we need to do to step it up to, to be more engaging or whatever. So put your cameras on. I know sometimes I'm guilty in meetings of not having my camera on, but we get called out on it sometimes, not all the time. So I would, because you can't be multitasking. You shouldn't be anyway. But yeah, so try to keep your cameras on if you can.
Love it. Those are great tips. And I want to mention a couple other things too for our students about, I think kind of what you were saying, Jen, like there's a real person that you're signing up to speak with, right? So we have some career fairs coming up, which I would encourage all of our student attendees here, like go on to Handshake, register for the fair. But in this virtual space, we have some interesting options, right? Instead of standing in a line to talk to someone, you can sign up for a one-on-one session with them, and you can sign up for those group sessions. So one thing I want to say for our attendees here is take those seriously. When you sign up for that one-on-one, it's not a, hey, I'm like holding my place in line. There's a person there on the other side of that one-on-one who is waiting for you to log in at that time. Be prompt, show up when you're going to say that you are going to show up, like do not no show for anything. If, like we mentioned earlier, communicating, if you're going to be later, you have to reschedule, communicate that. The other side is if we have students who want to speak to that recruiter and you no-show, it doesn't give anyone else the opportunity to take that spot from you, right? So be courteous, not just to the recruiter, but to your fellow Bruins as well, right? Like if you can't make that time slot, give it up, go put the legwork in, go in and take your name out, offer that to someone else so that they can take it. And then really quickly, we know it can be very difficult to find those quiet spaces to do these interviews or these networking sessions, right? And we absolutely don't want you to think that you can't attend something because you don't have a quiet space. So I also want to mention that the Career Center here, if students are on campus, we do have an option to have you rent one of our interview rooms. So we don't have on-campus interviewing happening right now, but we absolutely have space. If you're like, you know what, I've got an interview and I can't guarantee that my roommate is not going to decide to shower in the middle of that. Like I have no control over these other people that I'm with, right? And we understand like there's only so much you can control about your environment. So if you feel that you need a space, you want a door, you want just a quiet spot that you know that you can, do what you need to do, we absolutely have reservations for you. And it's no cost to our students, right? We've got all this space now that our staff is hybrid. Reach out to us. We're happy to help. Give us some lead time, right? Don't say like, I've got a thing in 15 minutes and like come in sweaty and expect us to get you, reach out to us, let us know what you need. And we definitely probably have the space to accommodate you. Utilize it, right? If we've got the rooms, we want to give it to you. So really quick, I want to ask about traits that you're looking for in your new hires, right? So we know we're here at UCLA, our students are brilliant. We know that their classroom content, the things that they're learning is, best in the country, right? We're the #1 university. So we know that academics are where they need to be, but for soft skills, what are you guys looking for in your new hires? What would you like our students to be able to talk about as a skill set when they're interviewing with you? We mentioned communication skills. I know that has to be pretty high up on that list. But I'd love to hear, what traits are you looking for in your staff beyond those hard skills that you need for the position? And if those have changed recently, I'd love to know if maybe what you're looking for has shifted a little bit in the past 2 years.
I suppose for us, from a soft skill point of view, I mean, communication is critical. I know sometimes those that go into the STEM field think, well, I don't need to have strong communication skills, but you really do. If you need to, you have to be able to express your ideas and thoughts, bring that to the table. Otherwise, people won't know about that. Teamwork is very important, being able to work with others, because a lot of our work is done in teams. And then leadership, you don't have to be the elected leader. It could be, maybe it's a project team that are involved with, in informal leadership. So those are 3 things that I can think of right off, the top of my head. I mean, there certainly are some technical skills that we look for, like, analytical ability the other thing I suppose I would also add is curiosity and creativity. Going back, I think Jen might have mentioned asking questions. That's important, to ask questions. I think she mentioned, we don't expect you to know everything, but that's a way of engaging and showing interest. So those would be some things that I would include.
Yeah. Okay. Again, Margaret taking my list again. We're not letting her go first anymore.
Right.
Just kidding. Totally go first. But like we mentioned, intellectual curiosity. For us at First Republic, again, we don't expect you to have this wealth of knowledge of finance or like know how to read a balance sheet. Like we will teach you the tools of the trade. Like that you don't have to worry about. What we do want is you to ask smart questions. And what I mean is that you digest what is coming to you and ask the follow-up question. If you don't know, ask the question, but like referencing, like, this is what I learned, be prepared in that. I also think accountability, something that has changed more in the pandemic, is accountability, because we are not sitting next to each other. We don't see like this environment where everyone is like writing emails or like having meetings in conference rooms. We're in our own place, whether you have a roommate or you're solo. You have to like be accountable of your own work. And if you are, at least at First Republic, no one micromanages. We don't want to do that. We also really go with what's trending, which is saying, like, being able to give trust day one, saying, we trust you with your work. We know that you're going to get it done. We want you to have a work-life balance. If you get it done, go enjoy the rest of the time that you have. So that means managing your time, prioritizing what work assignments. And even it's like I tell my interns all the time, it's like, if someone emails you, just respond saying, thanks, we'll follow up with this. Like, that's the communication we're looking for. We don't want it to just go into like a black hole, being like, I think that person got my email. Because you have to remember, we're not in the office right now. So it's over communicating. And if you're over communicating, you're probably communicating at the right amount. That's what we are always saying, that's the rule of thumb.
Oh, I love that, Jen. That was so good. Accountability, time management. I mean, I would echo those through and through. And a great way for students, this is a tip, right, of how to show that you have those two things. How have you been managing your time in classes now during the pandemic, right? Talk about what you did last year. Talk about what you're doing this semester, this quarter, right? How did you figure that out? And, you know, you can even highlight, hey, I wasn't perfect with this early on. I've struggled with that, but this is what I did to improve it. And I'm excited about, you know, this quarter coming up and how I can make sure to really stay on top of these things, right? Something else, the last thing, because outside of being a recruiter, again, I'm a business coach. So something else that I want to know is, are you coachable? If there's something that, you know, maybe you could improve on, are you going to be receptive to that feedback, right? Or are you, you know, will that maybe hit you in a wrong way? Will that be disappointing to you? Will you immediately want to quit and give up, right, from a little piece of feedback? So just kind of have a little bit of self accountability, have self-management, and understand that everything is to your benefit. So don't be afraid to ask those tough questions, right? We love those as recruiters. Ask us those questions. We'd rather you ask them now in the interview process than waiting until you're in day one, right? We want to make sure it's a good fit. So I think all of those things kind of tie together, but that's what I would say to that.
I echo everybody have said so far. Teamwork, another thing that I could add is initiative, having the initiative to like reach out and just raise your hand, especially on day one. That really just speaks a lot about how you are and how you would be like when you're already working. So that's like something that we really look at. And another thing I want to note is during the interview process. So in consulting, they do case interviews where a big chunk of the time is spent doing cases, right? In that chunk of the time, yes, we're trying to test your ability to like crack the case, but also from there, we're also looking at different things, right? How do you take in feedback? How do you take redirects? How do you take in, like, if you're stuck, how do you manage to get out of that? Those are things that we're also looking at, not just like having just the right answer, right? So just be mindful, like coming into the interview, yes, we're asking you case interview, but how you get through that is something that we're also evaluating. So just be mindful of that.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, Renee, right? To me, I hear mindset. You know, there's a glass of water on the table. Half of the students may see it as half full. The other half may say it's half empty. Which one are you, right? And that's a good question to evaluate and think about as you go into an interview process. And that's a good skill set, and just awareness is coming to mind, right? That I like to point out to our candidates and our interns and really look for as a trait when we're interviewing.
Awesome. Love these answers. I hope our attendees are taking notes, because this is a lot that you can talk about in these networking sessions. And when you speak to these recruiters, right, this is so much that you can shed light on with your experience and talk about how you're skilled in these areas. This is wonderful. I've got a quick, we're going to open it up for Q&A shortly. So reminder to all of our attendees, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. We'll get to them as soon as we can, and we'll respond to them in the order that they come in. But I want to ask our panel, how has your industry changed with recruiting? I know there are some industries that really had a challenging couple of years. Either, Margaret, you talked about internship program. Some of our recruiters went without an internship program in 2019 or 20, and some of our students had offers rescinded. Some of our recruiters came through and really reduced the amount of hires that they, maybe they were still able to come to campus last fall or recruit virtually with us, but your hiring numbers were much different. For your industries and your organizations, what does the hiring landscape look like right now? And I'd love to, if any of the other pieces are changing, is your timeline different now? Not just how many students you're looking to hire, but has that changed? We talked about longer interview processes. That might be something that's kind of occurred now. If there's any information like about your field with recruiting, demand, and timelines, would love to hear about those.
Surprisingly, our targets are higher than our typical year, which is surprising and great. So a lot of movement. And so, that's for us. There's more spots available. So really would encourage people to apply if they are interested.
I'd say the same thing. We've actually tripled our intern class this year, and we'll be also probably staying around that number because it will get even larger. But something that I think correlates with that number is that everyone realized during the pandemic that financial planning became a priority. Whatever stage you are in your life, you want to feel a sense of stability. And so I think we had a influx of clients that came in and they said, okay, I really need to have a service that can help me make my $1 into $2, right? That's the simplest way to put it. So because of that business, we have now, we are trying to also accommodate that extra increase. So far, we just found out for us that we've already exceeded our annual hires from last year to now, and we're still 3 months left of this year. So I would say in the banking industry, or Zakia, feel free to chime in on this too. There's definitely demand, which means that we need more headcount, we need more people. So I would say at least for First Republic, we are hiring like crazy right now.
And just to give a little more context too, for why we're hiring a little bit more, with the pandemic, there's a lot of uncertainty and businesses, firms needed to shift. So there's really a big demand on consultants to help them navigate this uncertainty. How do we manage? How do we cope? So so more need for consultants. So.
I love the words hiring like crazy. We love hearing that. That's a wonderful thing to hear. Awesome. Any other panelists for that one?
I would just say our recruiting process definitely has changed. I know I alluded to it and mentioned it earlier, but we went from having a 3-step interview process to now having about a 4 or even 5-step process. Because before you would come into the office, right? And you would not only get a chance to meet with me, but maybe another advisor would come in or an intern would come in. We do that same process now, but we do it remotely. And sometimes the times don't align, where maybe you have to meet with me on a Monday and you meet with someone else on Wednesday. So that is a little bit different. So I would say bear with us as we get through this process. But again, it's only to your benefit as a candidate. So we can expose you to as much of our culture, of our firm, and give you, pull back the curtain and give you the real idea of what it's going to be like when you're with us. So that's one thing that sticks out to me, definitely more than most of this. I would echo to what you said earlier, Jen. Our demand has gone up substantially, right? Everyone is looking to figure things out and manage their money in a different way. I would even say too, for some of the younger students on the call, I think the entire Gen Z and millennial population at this point is familiar with Robinhood and has either a friend or someone they know that's on it, right? So I think even that and understanding, well, what does Robinhood actually do? And how does that differ for some of these other organizations that are out here, right? I think that knowledge piece is so key. So we will definitely talk more about that, I think, in our process than we ever have historically. That's a big shift for us, just education on the differences in the market right now and what students can do, and how it's not just behind the desk all the time. And it's not just customer facing. It's a mixture of all of those that you can get exposure to if you desire.
Definitely have to add to that. I think for First Republic, we've even, like Zakia mentioned, it's the Robinhood. I mean, we are now creating roles that we've never had before because of the, the environment that we're in, right? Like we are in digital banking, but like, how do we stand out versus our competitors? And so like, there's not only are there traditional roles available, but there's new ones. So definitely keep an eye out when you are doing research on companies and see like, what's the new thing that like everyone is trending. Most likely everyone is going to start like drafting like job descriptions like in a very like rapidly like figuring this out. So I would say definitely the pandemic has made it even more competitive for employers because a candidate could say, well, this employer is offering this and it's like a hybrid of 20% of this, 20% of that, and then you're like, okay, so tell me more about this. And it becomes like an interview, like I'm asking the questions. So just stay tuned on what happens. Again, like I just said earlier, I don't even know what's happening next week. So things change.
Michelle, I would say for us, our hiring numbers are pretty stable. We hire quite a few, both interns and new grads across the country. The biggest thing for us has been, I suppose, with the pandemic, is starting our process sooner rather than later. We try to hire 75 to 80% of our hires now in the fall for 2022. Now we're in a little different situation because some of our work does require security clearances and some of those items, which takes some time to obtain. But we really hit the fall hard, both for our intern and new grads for 2022. It always hurts me or I feel bad when a student's coming to me in March and looking for an internship and it's like, we're done. Unfortunately, would have loved to have chatted, we've had opportunities earlier in the fall, but now I've got really nothing to be able to offer you. So please, start your job search early. Don't wait for the spring or the winter to look for an opportunity. Now, it could be just incumbent upon our industry. I don't know about the rest of you, but again, I know we have stepped up and are really starting. We do things in the summer with students too, just to get them on board and to understand our business and what we'll be looking for. So.
Awesome. Yes, definitely early. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you realize, oh, this opens up in February. Great, I have some time. But, we'd hate for you to miss opportunities because you waited a little too long. And we've got some great questions coming in through the chat, actually. So I've got a couple DM to me, but I want to start with, I think Alina's question is first. And she says, hello all, thank you to the panelists for the valuable information. Her question is, after the one-on-one sessions, is it appropriate to ask for recruiters or employers' email contact info to stay in contact with them? And I will maybe just add on, what is the appropriate or best way to ask for that information in a one-on-one or an info session if they're looking for your guys' direct emails?
For us, I think it's fine to ask like after. Is it possible to just ask for your email? I'm happy to just, if I have any other questions that have come up. But I think one thing to be mindful of is also our staff, the people that are coming to the events are also incredibly busy folks as well. So just not bombarding, like trying to like meet with them every week or something like that. Just being mindful of the other side in terms of like the emails that you get or like the request for chat that you're requesting. We would love to accommodate requests, your questions, but also just be mindful. Like you don't need to reach out to 30 of our staff asking the same question because we're gonna probably say the same thing, but we just like being mindful. If you have like your questions answered, we're happy to accommodate those. Just wanna make sure that you're just not reaching out for the sake of reaching out. Does that make sense?
Yes, great point.
I'll share an experience I had most recently, and I was super impressed by this candidate. So again, another tip. I met a candidate through Handshake, of course. We had a couple messages go back and forth, and we had a confirmed kind of intro call with one another, just 30 minutes just to chat about the position. And that was all done via email. This candidate took it upon themselves because they received my email with my signature and confirmation of my number they gave me a call and just said, hey, Ms. Whiteside, I just wanted to see, was there anything that I needed to do or anything that you would like from me before our call tomorrow? I just want to make sure I'm prepared. And I just was like, that's awesome, right? And now, of course, as recruiters, we are very busy. So that may not work every time, right? But I think just that initiative to prepare beforehand, right? To reach out, to do your research, connect with us, research us, right? Learn a little bit about us as well, because that can be really helpful. And if you don't know or you can't find us, ask us our story. How do we end up at the company? What do we love about the company, right? Why are we still there? I think that can, again, give you insight into what you're getting into and could just be really helpful in the process for you. So that would be just something that I was very impressed with that candidate. And I thought, yeah, this is a great guy. So I'm excited to meet with him next week, but do some version of that in whatever way is comfortable for you.
I definitely agree with Saki and Renee. And what we mean by busy is like, we are really like doing like so many different things day to day, bouncing between different events at different schools. Like we can get really lost. Like usually I feel like, and this is a terrible example of work-life balance here, but like, it's like by the end of the day is when I'm getting to my inbox, right? Like, because I've just been in events like all day. Like I've been in events like 6 hours today. Like I've just been talking and churning it out. Something I do think I want to add to Sakia is also, before you ask for like the email or everything in your elevator pitch, if you have a story, use it. Because like, I feel like what stands out at the end of the day is someone that can say, I am, first generation, I'm the first to go to college. This is what I'm really interested. These are my passions. It really grabs our attention, and I will remember you like very clearly that this is your story. And then when you do follow up and you ask for that, you can write mention, say, hi, it was a pleasure meeting you today. I really connected with you over XYZ topic, right? And that really gets people started and say, wow, I really was really impressed with that person. I think every single time I've talked to a candidate who starts off with their story and their background, it just gives a personal touch. It just says, let's connect very easily. So hopefully it's another tip that you guys can grab, but it's, again, I also want to preface, it's not for you to list your entire resume down. It's not like, I worked at this place, I'm affiliated to this organization, I'm doing this. I can read that on your resume. That's very easy. I want to hear is how are you unique? Who are you as an individual? What is your brand? And how does that fit our company at the end of the day?
Awesome. That's great, Jen. Again, this is all extremely valuable. I hope our students are writing this stuff down. I have a couple more questions. I don't think we'll get to all the questions, but I want to see if maybe I can squeeze this last one in because I think it's a great one. So thank you for this question submission. Maybe we can just go real quick around for insight in this one. So the question is, when's the best time to ask during an internship about possible job openings in the company? Is this a question you ask during the interview? And is it an appropriate question to ask? So I think this is a great, great question for this panel. Even though we've only got a couple minutes left, I hope we can get some responses in.
I can answer. I think it's perfectly fine if you're in the interview process and you ask, so do current interns, are they eligible for a full-time offer? That is a very professional, fine question. Don't be scared to ask it. And if you are in your internship, maybe ask, like, just do a check-in with your recruiters, put some time on their calendar and say, hey, I really enjoyed my summer here. I just wanted to learn what the next steps are. If there's anything that I should do, to like be considered for an offer, just check in. Your recruiter would be happy to tell you exactly what it is and will be fully transparent if whether you may be eligible or if you're not, how to get there, and they will put a plan together for you. We want to see you succeed.
Absolutely. I think for us, our internship program is strategic. It's not just extra help during the summer to kind of help. It's strategic. So we want to be able to engage the talent. Our managers do performance reviews with the interns. You have a subset of goals that you're expected to achieve, and you check in with your manager like anybody else. And at the end of the internship, you're evaluated. And that's usually, you know, we do want to convert our interns, either bring them back the following summer or convert them into full-time. I mean, that is the premise of our intern program. So.
Same here. Our internship is a pipeline
Yeah.
for our full-time program. So
That's great. So yeah, don't be shy to
Absolutely. I
ask,
was
right?
just
They
going to
wanna
echo
keep you.
that. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, if I know we're at time, I want to be considerate of our panel's days here. We've got links in the chat for Margaret and Zakia's sessions. So if you want to chat with them, if we didn't answer your questions, I think there was one question we didn't get to today, feel free, join the sessions. We've got the links in the chat. Stacy and I will hang out in this meeting room in case you want to come back and get the different link. We'll be here for a few minutes, but I want to just give a huge thank you to our panelists today. It is like the busiest time for us to ask for an hour from you. So you've been so generous and your insight has been amazing. I hope our attendees got a lot out of it. Thank you so much for joining us. Please pop into these sessions if you're able to, and keep an eye out for all of these employers. Info sessions, gonna come and see them at the fairs that are coming up. Apply for their positions that are open. And yeah, if there's any questions that you have for Stacy and I, we'll be hanging out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Happy Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend.